Imagine building everything from the ground up. Holding it all together, finances, stability, love. 6 years together. You supported her through it all. Even when her dreams felt bigger than reality, you believed. Then one night, over a quiet dinner, she simply says, "I've fallen in love with someone else." No tears, no fight, just silence. But what came after changed everything. No revenge, no drama, just one calm decision. That flipped her whole world upside down. She thought she was choosing something better. She had no idea everything she depended on was in my hands. What happens when you quietly remove the support? This is a story about how quiet actions can echo louder than any scream. Watch until the end, because what happened next, she never saw coming. At dinner one night, my wife leaned in close and whispered, almost casually, "I've fallen in love with someone else." I didn't blow up, didn't shout, didn't even ask who. I just looked at her and said, "Huh, good to know." That same night, while she probably thought I was sulking or planning some big confrontation, I quietly pulled the $80,000 I had invested in her startup, called off the deal we had going on a new house, and by morning I was packing my stuff and moving out. 3 days later, her new boyfriend, the guy she left me for, was already calling me, practically begging for help. I'm 34, been working as a software engineer for years. I'm not rich, but I live comfortably, have solid credit, and I've always kept my finances and my life in order. I'm not the kind of guy who blows money on flashy cars or expensive vacations, but I've always believed in staying ready. Emotionally, financially, all of it. Tessa, my wife, she's 30 now. We met back when she was grinding it out in retail while trying to finish fashion school. What hooked me wasn't just her looks or charm. It was that fire she had. She dreamed big, talked about creating her own fashion brand from the ground up. I respected that so much that I backed her all the way. In the 6 years we were together, 4 of those married, I helped her climb out of student debt, paid rent when she was between jobs, and over time, I invested about $80,000 into her dream business. She wanted to build something amazing. I wanted to believe in her as much as she believed in herself. Back then, she wasn't manipulative or anything like that. She was just this optimistic, head-in-the-clouds kind of dreamer who couldn't balance a checkbook to save her life. I was the practical one, the numbers guy. While she chased ideas and creativity, I stayed in the background, making sure taxes were filed, bills got paid, credit stayed clean, and we always had insurance. We made a solid team, or at least I thought we did. About a year ago, she started talking about buying a house. She found this sleek, modern place she absolutely loved. Big windows, quiet neighborhood, perfect commute for both of us. But she wanted it in her name. For once, she told me, I just want to own something that's mine. I didn't take it personally. She said it was symbolic, and I understood. Still, I made sure we handled it smart. Loan would be in both names, and I quietly set up legal protection on my side. Not because I thought she'd screw me over, but because I'm not the kind of guy who jumps without a parachute. Then, about 6 months ago, little things started to shift. At first, it was easy to ignore. She suddenly had more work events than usual. Weekend girls' trips where she'd leave at weird hours and roll back in late. New outfits she never wore around me. Texts that she'd angle away from my line of sight. I didn't confront her. I'm not the jealous, paranoid type, but I noticed. She started losing patience over tiny things. We'd forget our inside jokes. Dinner together became rare. Sex dropped to maybe once a month, and even then, it felt like she wasn't really there with me. There was no massive blowout fight, no screaming matches. Just this slow, creeping distance that kept growing between us. Then one night, we're sitting down for dinner. Nothing fancy, just leftover Thai takeout with the TV murmuring in the background. And she sets her fork down, looks straight at me, and says it as calmly as if she was reading the weather report. I'm in love with someone else. I didn't react right away. I kept chewing, swallowed, took a slow sip of water, and finally looked up at her. She wasn't crying. She wasn't yelling. She actually looked lighter, like she'd just set down a heavy backpack she'd been carrying around. All I said was, "Good to know." That threw her off completely. She flinched, like my calmness was the last thing she expected. I think she came prepared for some explosive scene. Me shouting, throwing accusations, maybe even breaking down. Instead, I just nodded, stood up from the table, and quietly started clearing our plates. She just sat there for a bit, watching me like she couldn't figure out if I was serious or secretly losing it. Then, soft as a whisper, she said maybe we should take some space. She'd crash at a friend's place for a while. I told her that sounded fine. What she didn't know was that I already knew exactly who this someone else was. Some guy she met at a photography workshop last fall. I wasn't snooping, it just happened. She'd left her laptop open one afternoon, and a string of messages popped up. She called him a rare kind of soul. Said he really sees me. I didn't react. That's not who I am. I've never been the loud, table-flipping type. I just filed it away and waited. That night, when she grabbed an overnight bag and headed out, I didn't follow her or text her friend to check in. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up every account we had together. That's when the story really began. The house felt eerily still after she left. No sound except the soft ticking of the kitchen clock. The glow of my laptop screen almost felt like it was staring back at me, waiting for me to do what I'd already decided was going to happen. First up, the house. We hadn't closed on it yet, but I'd co-signed the mortgage application, which was enough to matter. The next morning, I made one call to our broker. Calm as could be, I told them there had been a change in our relationship, and I was pulling my name. No fight, no back and forth. They understood. Thing is, without me, she didn't qualify, not with her inconsistent income and a credit score that was still limping from years of just scraping by on minimum payments. By lunchtime, that pre-approval vanished like it never existed. Next came the startup money. I keep my paperwork tight, neat folders labeled down to the detail. Inside one marked taxes and legal. There was an agreement I'd had drawn up when I first invested in her fashion line. She wanted the $80,000 for materials, vendors, marketing. I said yes. But before I handed it over, I had a clause added that let me pull the plug any time before we were officially married. She barely skimmed the first paragraph before signing. Back then, I didn't think I'd ever need it. I just don't like gambling with everything on the line. That night, I exercised the clause. Fired off notices to the payment processor, suppliers, and vendor accounts. Within 24 hours, every dollar was back where it started. Nothing stolen, nothing shady, just returned to its source. The suppliers who depended on that cash froze orders. Production ground to a halt overnight. After that, I logged into my employee benefits portal. She'd been on my health insurance plan under domestic partner. We'd never officially filed the marriage certificate, so technically, she was still listed as a dependent under engagement status. I unchecked a single box. Done. She was off my plan instantly. And here's the thing, I wasn't doing any of this out of spite or fury. Truthfully, I didn't feel angry. What I felt was clean. Like stepping out of a heavy fog I hadn't even realized I'd been living in for years. By the second night, one of her friends texted me, asking if I'd heard from her. I replied that we'd spoken briefly, which was true. That was all I said. By the third day, I was gone too. Packed a bag, had my mail forwarded to A.P.O. box, and moved into a short-term rental clear across town. No drama, no tearful goodbye notes, no door slamming. I just booked a quiet place, set up my work laptop, and started fresh from there. She'd always said she needed space to find herself. Well, now she had all the space she could ever want. That same afternoon, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I let it roll to voicemail. Later, when I finally listened, it was him, the photographer. His voice was shaky, cracking like he was trying hard not to sound completely panicked. He said things between them were getting too real, too fast. That she was losing it, crying nonstop, blaming him for blowing up her life. He actually asked me if I could step in, talk to her, calm her down, maybe even take her back for a bit until she stabilized. I didn't answer. That same evening, she showed up at my old place. I still had the doorbell cameras running, so I watched from my phone as she stood there in that same oversized hoodie she used to throw on for our Sunday coffee runs. She was sobbing, hands in her pockets, pacing a little. then just stood still for a long time before finally walking away. A few hours later, my phone buzzed with a text. I made a mistake. I thought I wanted something else. He's not who I thought he was. He thinks my business is dumb. He even laughed at my mood board. Another text followed right after. Please just talk to me. We can fix this. I miss you. But there was nothing left to fix. Not anymore. The next morning, she tried calling. First from her phone, then again, then from her mom's phone. I let them all go to voicemail. By midday, she sent a long email. Pages of apologies mixed with excuses, saying she didn't mean to fall for anyone else, that she was confused, and that she thought I'd always be there while she figured herself out. She wrote about missing our simple routines, grocery runs, the way I folded her laundry just right, how I'd remember small things like exactly how she liked her eggs cooked. Funny thing, those little details tend to hit hard when your backup plan doesn't have a plan of his own. But this wasn't just about cheating. It was about months of silence, of pulling away bit by bit, of knowing that while I was still trying to build a life with her, she was already holding additions for my replacement. The dream house? Gone. Without my income and credit backing it, the lender pulled the file the second I withdrew. They marked it as financially impossible for a single buyer. She didn't even know yet. Her startup? Falling apart fast. When I pulled the funds, the dominoes tipped hard. Vendors stopped replying. Her manufacturer shut down the next production run. One supplier even flagged her as a non-payment risk. She had no safety net left, no job with benefits, no savings. She'd poured every dime back into chasing that vision of hers. And since she'd been relying on my health insurance, even that lifeline was cut. Meanwhile, me? I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad anymore. For years, I quietly invested everything. Money, energy, heart. Just to wake up and realize I'd been the foundation of her life. The piece she assumed would never shift no matter how much weight she piled on top of it. When she finally found out about the house falling through, she came back again. I didn't open the door, but I heard her outside, first shouting, then crying, and eventually just sitting quietly on the steps. She stayed close to an hour before leaving. That night, another message came through. You're trying to ruin my life. I read it and stayed silent. But to the empty room, I said out loud, I didn't ruin your life. I just stopped paying for the version of it where I was being used. She tried reaching out through mutual friends. A few called me looking for answers. I told them exactly what happened. No added drama, no twisting the story. Some were stunned. Others admitted they saw it coming. About a week later, one of her former business partners forwarded me an email. The startup was officially shutting down. Suppliers had walked, orders were canceled, and no new investors wanted any part of it once word got around about the chaos. 2 months later, someone mentioned she'd quietly moved back in with her parents. No big social media post, no grand exit, just gone. As for me, I just kept living. Downsized into a smaller, simpler place. Adopted a dog. Started spending weekends out on hiking trails. I never posted about her. Never tried to drag her name through the mud. I didn't need revenge. I didn't even want it. All I wanted was to stop pretending I was okay being her safety net while she chased some fantasy. People say I handled it coldly. Maybe they're right. But when someone ends the relationship and still expects you to be there holding the safety rope, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is just let go.